recording this video, I've read 161 books this year. I can't believe I read so many. I've started a lot of series, so a lot of my reading plans for this month are going to be wrapping up those series, so that way I can start the new year fresh. So in this video, I am going to show you guys the 10 books that I'm going to be prioritizing for my end of the year TBR. The first book that I'm going to be reading this month is going to be The Winter Truth by Brandon Sanderson. This is the 5th book in the first arc of the Stormlight Archive. This is also the final book in the first arc of the Stormlight Archive. These books are really intimidating because each one is like over 1,000 pages. I think I remember Brandon Sanderson saying that Winter Truth was the longest one. When I got the book and I looked at the page count, it was 1.3k over that amount. So I got a really chunky book to start out here with, which it's okay. It's okay. I eat these up. Every one of these has been a 5-star. I love the Stormlight Archives. I don't think I'll ever have another reading experience like this. Just in case you're wondering what the Stormlight Archives are about, just in case you might want to read it yourself, you 100% should. Start right now. The Stormlight Archives are high fantasy books set in the world called Roshar. And this is a world where powerful storms shape everything, from the creatures to the way the people live in the world. The story follows a wide and diverse cast of characters. The central conflict of this book revolves around the return of an ancient enemy. The character growth and the relationship and the politics and just the world building and the magic system in these books are my favorite in fantasy that I've read, like, ever. Something that I really love, and I will say this forever on this channel, something that I really love about Brandon Sanderson's writing, even if the book is over 1,000 pages, his writing strikes this perfect balance of being simple enough to understand but complex enough to build an amazing world and amazing characters and amazing magic systems. The second book is Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. This is the prequel book to Legends and Lattes. Legends and Lattes was one of my standout reads of the year. I had such a fun time reading it. It was very cozy. I loved the little romance in it. I loved the characters. And this one looks like it promises to give the same type of vibe. I think in this book, Viv, who is an orc, has been wounded by a necromancer, and she's sent off to a beachside town called Merk, where she is forced to rest. I guess some of this involves a bookshop. So I'm really excited to dive into this and just have a really nice, easy, cozy read. Especially after I get done with Winter Truth, I feel like I'm gonna need a palate cleanser. The next 2 books are the last 2 books of the House Moving Castle trilogy, and they're Castle in the Air and The House of Many Ways. I just have to put this in here. This clip from House Moving Castle has me in a freaking chokehold.
I'll make sure to draw them off, but wait a bit before you head back outside.
Okay.
That's my girl.
Yeah, that's a nice clip. Just in case you might want to know what this is about. So we have Sophie, and she's our main character. She's the oldest of 3 girls, and she works in a hat shop. Sophie somehow makes the Wicked Witch of the Waste, which is our main villain, the evil bad lady, angry, and so she puts up a spell on her to make Sophie old. So in an effort to get rid of this curse, Sophie heads to the mountains, as an old lady, by the way, to meet the infamous wizard Hal, and the story just takes off from there. All the characters from the movie are in the books, and there's lots of extra things in the book that aren't in the movie. There's like lots of threads that are being weaved with the story, so it doesn't surprise me that all of the things in the book weren't included in the movie, but they tastefully adapted the source material into a really good movie, and the book is just as good. So I'm excited to read the last 2 and see what happens. The next book is the final book in the His Dark Material trilogy, which is The Golden Compass, The Subtle Knife, and this one, The Amber Spyglass. I enjoyed The Golden Compass. It was a 5-star read for me, but I didn't really like The Subtle Knife. I thought that the author was trying too much to inject his own ideology into the book, and it just felt really different from The Golden Compass. Like, The Golden Compass was so whimsical and magical, and somehow The Subtle Knife just took me out of it. And so I'm hoping The Amber Spyglass will be a lot better than The Subtle Knife. Oh no, did I just record that whole thing with bald? I must have hit the wrong wrong toggle. The next book is Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. This is the sequel to the Encyclopedia of Fairies, which, oh my gosh, that was another one of my favorite vibey reads of this year. It had one of the cutest romances in it. It wasn't overly done, and there were stakes in the book, and I really liked it. It's winter, and it is the time for cozy fantasy. So if there is ever a time to read it, it is now. I don't care if it doesn't take place in winter, as long as it's comfy and fantasy. I'm gonna read it. The first book follows a Cambridge professor named Emily who travels to a small town to study fairies so she can write an encyclopedia on them. Then the story just evolves from there, and I think in this one this follows the same professor as she goes back to Cambridge, and I think the fairies follow her or something like that. If I really like this, I'm going to pick up the third book in this as well, which I think is called The Compendium of Lost Tales. Also, the covers to these books are so freaking pretty. They have no business being that pretty. So the next book is The Hero and the Crown, and I'm so excited to go back into this world. Let me tell you about the Blue Sword. There's only like 2 books set in this world and so a whole bunch of like short stories, which is something that makes me so sad because I love the world in this book. This story follows a young woman named Harry who with her family has traveled overseas to a town in the desert. Harry's a bit awkward. She feels like she doesn't fit in, despite the fact that in this little community that they find themselves in, that there are only a handful of unmarried women, including her, so their company is in high demand. But there's also something bigger happening in this story where we have Sir Charles, and he's trying to negotiate with the Hillfolk. The Hillfolk are nomadic desert people who have like these crazy magnificent horses. Corlath, who is the leader of the Hillfolk, is trying to get Sir Charles, who's the leader of the outpost, to get the army to help him with a magical horde that is planning on attacking the Hillfolk. But in this process of negotiations, Corlath meets Harry, and his KOR, which is the magic in his blood, insists that he kidnaps Harry. It follows their story from there. It's so good. Harry's character journey in this book is 10 out of 10. The little subtle romance, 10 out of 10. The book, 5 stars, so good. Also note the Blue Sword is a YA book, and I don't think it's written like YA at all. Here we have The Hero and the Crown, and this is basically the origin story of the Hillfolk from what I'm gathering of the summary. So I'm really excited to go back to this world and learn more about it, and I can't wait to read more of Robert McKinley's writing. This is a book that's been sitting on my TBR since the beginning of this year. I think it's time to finally read it because I have heard nothing but good things about it. This book is called The Unmaking of June Farrow. The Farrow women live in a small town in North Carolina, and they run a flower farm. The women in this family are taken by a curse that makes them descend into madness. In this book, I think we follow June, who is starting to hear and see things that aren't there. But June is determined to break free of this curse. June's grandmother dies, and in the wake of her death, June discovers a series of clues that start answering questions, but also raise more questions about her mother's mysterious disappearance. And apparently there's a door that June saw once in the past but couldn't go through it or touch it, but she sees the door again and she can go through it and touch it, and then the adventure goes from there. I think that summary is the makings of a 5-star read, so I'm really excited to give this book a try. I'm kind of nervous about it because it's been super hyped up and I've heard lots of good things about it, so if it's not as good as everyone says it is, I will never trust TikTok again. The last 2 books are the final 2 in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, The Two Towers and The Return of the King. I have read The Hobbit and I've read The Fellowship of the Ring, and they're so good. The Lord of the Ring has some of my favorite lore for elves. Elves are my favorite fantasy creatures, and the lore that Tolkien built for them is 10 out of 10, and just all the characters in this book, and then it's so magical. So far my experience with them is that the books are quite different than the movies, which I thought was very interesting because some people live by the movies and then some people live by the books, and it's really different when you've consumed both. But yeah, that is my TBR for the rest of the year. I would say this is pretty ambitious. There's lots of fantasy, but I love fantasy in December. There are other books that I want to read as well, like a few romance books. There's a few books I'm reading right now, like like The City and Its Uncertain Walls and The Courting of Bristol Keats. I have a couple like Christmas horror books that I picked up from the bookstore that I'm kind of reading because it's Christmas and I need Christmas books. But these are like the 10 big boys that I want to finish before the end of the year, and they will be my priority reads. I think it might be fun to do like a 24-hour challenge or something reading some of these. You guys let me know what kind of content you want to see down in the comments. I can do anything. I know I'm a VTuber, but I'll figure out how to do it. Have a very Merry Christmas. Also, if you're interested in VTuber stuff and gaming stuff, I have a gaming channel down below if you would like to follow that. Also, follow my Goodreads if you would like to keep up with my reading journey in real time. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!